Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is the Steve Jones Show on what's today? Tuesday, News Radio 1070 WKOK. Macatrillo here with you. Steve will soon be there from the Sunbury Motors Studio. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. And online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai, all new pre-owned inventory. Great sales staff and service department as well. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. And online at sunburymotors.com. A couple of different notes coming down in the past couple hours or so in the NFL. Neil Coulong is going to join us today. The latest from Steelers camp as they get set to take on Detroit Saturday night. Jamal Adams now going to be the NFL's highest-paid safety, 4-year extension with a maximum value of $72 million, according to ESPN. $20 million signing bonus, $38 million guaranteed, according to Adam Schefter. He did report on time for training camp, so this was again something that was lingering, and we know some of the past issues that Adams has had. So this is still a little bit of a surprise for Seattle, but at the same time, he's been one of their better players out there, so you get why they did it. And because this now ends a 3-week stalemate with the Seahawks. So I'll still be interested. Plus, he's had some injury concerns, so this is an interesting signing here for Seattle. And then also, Tim Tebow is done in Jacksonville, thankfully. He was released today after trying to make a comeback as a tight end. And good move on the Jaguars' part. It was a stupid experiment to begin with. And this is probably the one thing at least Urban Meyer has come to his senses about. So he's done. Then we go to the NBA, and the Sixers out of nowhere have inked Joel Embiid to a 4-year, $196 million Supermax extension that keeps him on the team through the 26-27 season, which obviously is no surprise. There were some rumblings that these negotiations were going to start either at the end of this past year, or maybe at the start of next year. So we knew this was coming. So now with this extension, he's now signed, as I mentioned, through the 26-27 season for a total of $261 million. He was already set up to make $65 million over the final 2 years of his current deal. So there's no brainer, obviously, for the Sixers. They want to continue to build around him. But still, they're clearly in the win-now mode as they try to figure things out with Ben Simmons. And the more this lingers on with the trade rumors, the more this is going to be very curious as to how the Sixers are going to go about training camp, because there was the report last week that Ben Simmons has cut off all contact with the Sixers right now. And it looks like that he's probably going to have to go back to training camp at least, as Daryl Morey is doing the right thing if you're looking at getting somebody like a Damian Lillard or even a C.J. McCollum from Portland and waiting this out. Because as things get more tense with Portland, then the more this goes in the Sixers' favor, because then Portland's going to probably want to be more desperate to get rid of him. But Minnesota continues to be desperate, apparently, for Ben Simmons, so maybe the longer they wait, maybe that helps the Sixers' asking price. The problem is, it seems to be, especially with Minnesota, you're going to need multiple teams involved in this to get what the Sixers want, which is some all-star caliber players, and you're probably going to want multiple first-round picks, which is exactly what I would want in return. If the Sixers, knowing how far this is going, though, it's really hard to say where it is right now. It's going to be interesting to find out there. But there's some couple of notes to start off the show there, Mr. Steve Jones.
What were your notes? Was it about the Eagles?
No, actually, the Sixers, inking Joel Embiid.
5,000th quarterback.
Actually, Jalen Reagor had another impressive catch. Can he start bringing it on the field? We'll see. He had a OBJ-like catch today in joint practices with New England, but we'll see if he carries it on the field.
Do you know many of those I've seen in practice in my career? Okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, Tim Tebow's finally done in Jacksonville, thank God. Jamal Adams signed to a contract. We'll see if that blows up in Seattle's face. That's what I mentioned before you copped on.
Why do you think he'll blow up in their face?
Injury history, his antics. They had that 3-week stalemate before they signed this contract. I'm a little nervous if I'm a Seattle fan.
Okay.
But that's just me.
Well, you're a hater. I mean, that's always been one of the issues. I mean, you just add a big time contract. I think he's a terrific safety. But I think you can overpay for guys.
Totally agree.
That doesn't mean on a relative scale. I mean, he's the best safety in the NFL. Well, I'll tell you right now, if I had to pick a guy as a safety in the NFL, you know the guy I'd pick right now? Micah Fitzpatrick. He went to the Steelers and transformed a football team. Adams does a lot of really terrific things. I'm just saying that if I had a guy I had to pick, I might pick Fitzpatrick because I watched him go to Pittsburgh and transform a team. Adams went to Seattle, and I think he without question helped him because he's a great player. But did he transform the whole team? No.
And now Micah Fitzpatrick is next for a big contract extension. So this is a lot of eyes on Pittsburgh now.
But this is where, there's been an assumption made that may not be correct. The assumption made about Stephon Tuitt and the restructuring of his contract, which gave them more cap space, immediately everybody talked about T.J. Watt, and I thought, that doesn't affect this year. Okay? I think that opens the door, actually, for Micah Fitzpatrick. Not T.J. Watt. Watt will get his money. But I think the Tuitt contract reconstruction is actually more on the line to re-sign and Micah Fitzpatrick. Watt will then be after that. That's what I think.
You know what? I would agree with that because Watt is a whole other different animal because he's going to contest way more money than what Fitzpatrick's going to get, even with this extension with Adams.
Right. That's after this. So in other words, the Watt thing is always going to be after this anyway.
Right.
Tuitt's number in restructuring, in terms of what was restructured, is more in line toward what Fitzpatrick will eventually get. Watt is a completely separate deal. I mean, they'll re-sign both. I mean, the Steelers will re-sign both. But we're going to talk to Neil Coulon about this later in the show today. We'll have Neil on at 4:06. Mike Lang tomorrow and Micah Shrewsbury on Thursday. The head basketball coach of the Nittany Lions. So that's what we got coming up this week. And the King on Friday, by the way. King Friday. And That is, and then Tim Tebow. As soon as I saw this, you're the first guy I thought of, because I knew right away you'd be dancing in the streets. Again, what did I say when they signed him? I said there are 90 guys in there. 40 of them are going to get cut, or 35 of them are going to get cut. You bring people in with the idea of, like, let's just see what they have. And I said that about Tebow. I said, look, he probably won't make the team. And you're going along, it's a sham, it's bad. Look, you got 35 guys that are going to get cut. He's one of the 35 guys that get cut. It's like saying the guys the Eagles cut, it was a sham bringing them in, too. They just didn't have the name. Well, no, you bring in guys just to see, like, okay, can I catch lightning in a bottle with any of these guys coming in? Can I catch lightning in a bottle with a guy that was an undrafted free agent that suddenly becomes Drew Pearson? That's what you're trying to do with guys like Tebow, where you bring them in and go, hey, look, maybe we'll get lucky here. Let's just see. I've got 90 spots. And that to me is the entire deal as to why he was there. It's a guy that Urban Meyer knew. It's a guy Urban Meyer trusted, a guy Urban Meyer liked. They brought him in. It turned out that, guess what? He can't do it. The career's done. Unlike you, who, immediately wanted to hate.
I'll give Urban Meyer credit. He finally came to his senses from his big fat head.
But that's why you bring these guys in. I mean, are you going to say this about the guys the Eagles cut?
No, because none of the guys that the Eagles brought in, I've been in like this.
How do you know?
Circus of trying to resurrect a career that's clearly going to go nowhere.
Look, Tim Tebow is a Heisman Trophy winner, was a first-round draft pick. But Tim Tebow has been a lightning rod because, when he kneeled on the field, it had a completely different meaning to it compared to somebody else kneeling for the national anthem, okay? And it brought with it people who loved the fact that he was doing it, and you brought people out there that didn't like that he was doing it. So he's always been a lightning rod in that regard. As a football player, I've said once, I've said a million times about him. As a quarterback, not accurate enough. Just not accurate enough. I was surprised the Broncos picked him in the first round. And then watching him play, yeah, they won, but they were kind of winning it. Their defense was, that year, Denver's defense was really good. And he was able to do just enough. He won the one playoff game against the Steelers. But I was never enamored with him as a quarterback in the NFL level because he was not accurate enough throwing the football. As a runner, he can run. But for some reason, look, did he get more chances in life than other people? Yeah, he got more chances. Right? He definitely got more chances, especially with the Mets thing. He got more, but he was a minor leaguer with the Mets. He wasn't playing with the New York Mets. He was playing minor league baseball back when they had 6 levels. And so I think the Mets actually have 7. So in 7 levels. So he wasn't taking away a spot from anybody doing that. And he is typical of every first-round draft pick out there, which I'll go to the statement I've said a million times. First-round draft picks, actually the first 3 rounds, have to play their way out of the league. They get more chances than anybody else. Nelson Aguilar was a great example of that. Nelson Aguilar was given every chance on the face of the earth to be a contributor for the Eagles, and finally, in his 3rd year, he was. His first 2 years, he did not warrant a first-round pick, but he kept getting the chance because he was a first-round pick. He had to play his way out of it. If you're rounds 4 through 7 or a free agent, you've got to play your way into the league to get a second contract. a first through third round pick, especially a first round pick, you got to play your way out of the league. See, I hold this standard for everybody, not just Tim Tebow. You just hate. You see my logic, what I'm talking about?
No, it makes perfect sense.
I mean, he's typical of every first-round pick where everybody keeps saying, okay, he was a first-round pick, he was a first-round pick. So you want to give him more chances to see if, it's there. And then he goes to Philadelphia, and it's not there. He goes to the Jets, it's not there. He goes to New England, it's not there. Now he's gone to Jacksonville, it's not there. He's done. Okay? He's not taking up a roster space for anybody else or whatever, because believe me, he's in a group of guys that Jacksonville's not bringing back, and there's no roster space he took up that somebody else could have, because the roster space he took up was probably somebody that was also going to get cut. Simple as that. You just don't like him. And yet when I've talked to him about both you and Lisa, he speaks highly of both of you. Every time I see him, he says, Steve, Luke and Mark doing okay? Yeah, they're doing great. Yeah, he's a great guy.
He is off the field.
No, I've never met him, so I've never even been in the same room.
Well, he seems like it.
Right. But this is where I think he can excel, though. I've seen him a couple times on the SEC network. He is very good. He's very good. I think he has an opportunity to either be a studio analyst or he might be a game analyst. He's articulate and has a good mind for seeing the game.
Now that I do agree with.
That I think he could do very well with.
Yes.
All right, we'll take a break. Matt has more hateful statements coming up. It's just the way it is. It's just got to get you to start showing the love. By the way, Yankees lead the Red Sox 5-3, sixth inning, first game of a day-night doubleheader in the Bronx. It's a makeup game from earlier. Back with more in a moment. Great to have you with us today. Brought to you by our good friends at Sunbury Motors on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you, the other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
All right, Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf, online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai, great new inventory, the best. Fabulous and wide array of pre-owned inventory, if that's what your budget dictates, or maybe your taste dictates. Great sales staff that works with you. Great trade-in time. Fabulous service department. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf. And online at sunburymotors.com. Interesting article from ESPN.com. And it goes with a topic that we've discussed before, but we'll go through what they've been talking about as Matt plays with his computer. How are things going? Are you winning at Minecraft?
Let's go with that.
So ESPN on the state of baseball. What would baseball look like if we were redesigning it? So let's get your opinions on these. And fans, we want to always hear your opinions too. Number one, financially this may be impossible to do, but it is something I am absolutely in agreement with. Major League Baseball's regular season should be shortened by a month.
Yes.
I absolutely agree with that. Instead of playing 162 games, if you're playing 132, I think it allows you to dominate the cycle, because when baseball's hit September and the races are red hot and people are fighting to get in the playoffs or win the division, the NFL and college football are being played, and it goes to the background. You need to figure out a spot that's your spot. And baseball needs to understand where its spot is now. Expand and realign the leagues by geography. One I agree with, the other one I do not. I absolutely do want to see baseball expand by 2 teams to 32. I've maintained that for years on the show. I think it's the right number to work with. And I think it's also, look, I know people want to talk about Montreal. I want to see American markets. No offense. I want to see American markets. Nashville, Portland, someplace. I want to see, Charlotte. I want to see American markets. All this, let's go overseas. Let's do this. Yeah, I know. It's all about selling merchandise and bling. I got that. This is what I don't agree with, though. They propose, instead of the time-worn American and National League, go to Eastern League, Western League, each with 2 8-team divisions. No. And then they talk about pods and things like that. Look, keep it the way it is.
Agreed.
All right. Now, do you want to maybe change up a division a little bit? Maybe. For example, I'll give you an example. Maybe the Pirates should be in with the Phillies. Yeah. Pirates, Phillies, Mets, Washington in a 4-team division. Go to 4 divisions. Where now you're not playing Atlanta and Miami. Put Atlanta and Miami down, down south with somebody else. I think you got to think that part through.
Yeah, that scenario I totally wouldn't hate either, if there were going to be any geographical changes.
Right. But I think the American and National League concept should stay in place. In other words, the Yankees and Mets should not be in the same division. They can play each other in interleague play. I think that's great, but I like the divide between the two, where the Dodgers come into town to play the Mets, and Mike Trout and the Angels come into town to play the Yankees. So I want to see expansion, yes. And I've advocated for expansion for a long time, getting to 32. But I want them, no offense, I want them to be American teams. I'm not crazy about in other words, look, Major League Baseball is an American company. Expand to American cities. All right? That's how I look at it. I know you want to sell stuff overseas. I know you want to sell stuff in Mexico. I know you want to sell stuff in Canada. I got it. But there's a time you got to be looking inward and not outward. Pitch clock. I am for a pitch clock. It's been used in the minors, but not here, by the way. By the way, speaking of here, did you hear the final number of attendance for the Spikes this year? 92,477.
That's right. You told me off air yesterday. That is tremendous.
They almost drew 100,000 and lost 3 dates. They lost 3 dates. They have those 3 dates back. They're over 100,000. They led the league in attendance by a wide margin. Pitch clock. What do you think about the pitch clock?
Oh, I've always been for it, and I've seen it live at some AAA games, and I think it's perfect. I see no issue with it at all.
Rob Arthur's study at 538 in 2017 showed that velocity increases when pitchers take more time between pitches. With pitchers maxing out at more than ever on every pitch, especially relievers who are throwing a higher percentage of innings than they were in 62 or 84, that walk around the mound, that swipe of the brow, adds over 290 pitches. So, pitch clock, get out there, and it also may cut down on the velocity. Interesting. This one I don't agree with. Bring in the robo-umps.
Balls and strikes, I'm okay with. Guys down the line you still need.
Well, first of all, the robo-ump has not been going as well in the Atlantic League as people realize. I'd still say it's a human game, and it needs to be managed by humans, played by humans, and officiated by humans. I also think, though, that I want to see a fifth umpire added and be up in the box with a technician, reviewing every play and making the review process easier and faster instead of going central to New York. I don't like that. I think it holds the game back. I think you need to have somebody actually there that is an umpire that is watching that screen with a technician to make the process faster and easier. All right? So I'm not, I was leaning toward robo-ump, but you know what? As time has gone, I've stopped leaning that way. To me, it's a game played by humans, which means great plays by humans, mistakes by humans, great calls by coaches who are humans, mistakes made by coaches who are human. Same thing with the officiating. It's about humans. It is not about AI. Allowing the trading of draft picks. I'm all for that. I don't care. What do you?
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah, I don't care. The heck. Pay minor leaguers a living wage. Well, you know how they made the increase to minor leaguers this year, right? Do you know how they did it?
I vaguely remember this. I know it did happen.
Yeah, they cut teams. Okay.
Oh, well.
All right. Let's see. Next, rethink the role of the commissioner. Yeah.
To what exactly?
Yeah, I know. This guy writes on ESPN. It doesn't say who wrote the article, by the way. I think it's written by several different people. So who wrote this part? Oh, Tim Kuhn wrote this part. First order of business for me, the new commissioner of baseball is to address the tenuous nature of the time-honored ability to overcome the incompetence, greed, and short-sightedness of those who run it. The problem starts right at the top. The commissioner represents the game, but in the end, he works for the owners. Well, I've talked about this a million times. Okay? You want to know how you'd get around that? And I've talked about this for 35, 40 years. The owners pay half the salary. The Players Association pays half the salary. We're done. You're accountable to both, but you're not leaning, and in contract negotiations, you're out of it. Under Manfred's watch, the sport has faced a list of public relations disasters. That is true. They have. He has not managed the game well. The game now that's why when something like Field of Dreams happens, or the Little League Classic happens this weekend, it sticks out as brilliant because, A, it is brilliant, but B, it sticks out so much because of all the other stupid stuff they've done. Right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want a new commissioner, then I'm all for it. But changing what it is, then no.
But again, I think how that person is paid. The Players Association should be paying half, and the owner should be paying half.
Yeah.
Now you get a commissioner that's a commissioner.
Exactly.
Said the game will survive, it always does. But while the commissioner instead is focusing on the DH and extra innings and 7-inning doubleheaders, the sport is getting smaller. All right, now, number one, the commissioner should be talking about the DH. The commissioner should be talking about we're going to play extra innings back to normal. We're going to stop with 7-inning doubleheaders. The commissioner should be talking about that. Rob Manfred, in my opinion, is right on all three about going back the way they did it. That's what he's talking about. Okay? But he says the sport is getting smaller, more regional, less inclusive. Okay, let's go to the last part, less inclusive. Okay. You know what I found really interesting this year about the MLB Draft League? Really interesting, and I thought was really, really cool. A rather large number of black players. Now, we've seen over time in the New York Penn League many players from Cuba, Venezuela, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Mexico that have played. Every once in a while, the Spikes would get a guy like Terry Fuller. Okay? Or they had an outfielder who played for San Diego State, Santos, at one point. But this year, the Spikes, for example, had Cameron Lee, Highland Hall. I mean, a long list of guys that, Darrell Lloyd, Zacchaeus Raspberry. Same thing with Williamsport, Noah Hemphill, where I saw more players that African American, which is great because there's been the percentage kept getting smaller in the majors. I'm watching this draft league thing, and guess what? I'm starting to see, which was great, a larger percentage. Josh Culliver out there on the mound, and other guys. I thought that was great. That's more inclusive.
I was about to compliment ESPN.com for finally putting together a thoughtful piece, but this just ruined it. That is just completely ignorant. And also the fact, too, one of their reporters, Marley Rivera, who does a great job, by the way, has even mentioned inclusivity is the reason why she loves baseball when she covered the All-Star game.
Yeah.
You're not even listening to your own people.
Said youth baseball needs to be revamped before every poor kid is completely redlined out of the game.
What?
I have no idea what he's talking about there, because when the Jackie Robinson Little League in Chicago won the Little League World Series, now in the end, did they get a couple players from different areas? That point's irrelevant, okay? That point is irrelevant to the conversation. But those young people out of Chicago, that was being inclusive, right?
And again, your company broadcasts the Little League World Series games.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
It says here, let's see. Every poor kid is completely redlined out of the game. Look, when I fly into all these places, okay, I look out the window of the plane, and I look out the window of the bus. Do you know how many youth fields I see from the air? In cities, a ton. in towns, a ton. I see youth fields all over the place. Just use them. So, youth baseball is not redlining people at all. There are youth fields all over the place. And these Little League teams do provide bats and balls. Yeah, and uniforms. Youngsters have to provide their own glove. But they'll get a hat. They'll get a T-shirt. There's always 2 or 3, quote, community bats. And they give every team baseballs. And the fields are already there. So, okay, this person obviously doesn't leave the office. What did I talk about earlier? Many, many times I've talked about the Red Smith line. Be there. Yeah. That's one of the problems with the ESPN people right now. They don't go anywhere. They don't go anywhere. That's why Tim Kirchin's great. Tim Kirchin goes everywhere. Owners need to be accountable for willingly failing to field competitive teams. Well, it depends on who the owner is. That goes back to the beginning of time in every sport, right? Conditions in the minor leagues where players are bunking 5 to a room and struggling to afford food need to be addressed before they ignite full-on mental health crisis. Okay, a lot of minor league players stay with host families. They aren't bunking 5 to a room. Where does he come up with this stuff? Now, this year this year was different. They had to be put into hotels. But minor league teams, guess what? They use host families. They go and they stay at the homes of people who generously open their doors. And women need to have more powerful roles in redefining the culture. That's fine. We've seen Miami as GM. Now, I'm all for I'm all for taking always the best of the full talent pool across the board. Color irrelevant, gender irrelevant. I just want the best talent pool in ownership, the best talent pool in the front office, the best talent pool in the air, the best talent pool in the dugout or the sideline, and the best talent pool on the field or court. Doesn't matter to me where they come from. Doesn't matter to me who it is. So he finishes, the best path to improving the state of baseball starts by installing a commissioner whose relationship to the game goes deeper than financial concerns. Someone who stands for something other than sponsorships and real estate deals for billionaire owners. Someone who understands there are constituents in the game's operations departments, in the clubhouses, in the stands who actually like the game for what it is and not how much can be extracted from it. I completely agree with the last part about the operations departments, clubhouses, stands, and who actually like the game for what it is now, okay? But I want to say about this. In order to make this work, you need those financial deals and sponsorships. Okay? Fernando Tatis Jr. gets his contract because of those deals. Mookie Betts gets his contract because of those deals. Okay? You cannot make it today on what you charge in the stands. You can't. It's part of the formula. You only get 40% of your money from tickets. Where's the other 60% come from? See, that's where when I read an article like this, suddenly out of nowhere, the person that never leaves the room has all these great ideas and never gets out in the real world. You got to get out in the real world. You just can't sit there and be the Harvard professor that says, here's the great thing that we do, blah, blah, blah. This, in theory, it works. And then the real world, everybody looks at you and go, I'm sorry, in the real world, that doesn't work, sport. Okay. I'm a Harvard guy. I don't care. You don't know how it works in the real world. Okay? Be a Harvard guy. Go to the real world. Find out how it works. Then come back and talk to me and tell me how smart you are. Gee whiz. Some parts of that last part were good. Some parts were just thoroughly, completely naive. All right. Neil's next half hour. Let's see. How are your Yankees? Your Yankees are probably winning. Last I saw was 5-3. It's still 5-3, top of the seventh, but the Red Sox are threatening with nobody out. All right, back with more in a moment. Great to have you with us today as we continue on News Radio 1070 WKOK.